can't be the only person who wonders what would happen if Mr. Krabs finally got caught for everything. Dude, forget Plankton. Mr. Krabs is the real criminal mastermind in Bikini Bottom.
Unhand that penny or the arm comes off!
I've spent way too much time rewatching every questionable thing he's done, and honestly, he deserves a one-way ticket to Bikini Bottom prison. Let's start with something small. Underpaying employees. In the episode Squid on Strike, Mr. Krabs starts the day by treating his workers like any sane employer would.
Breathe on your own time. I don't pay you to breathe.
You hardly pay us at all.
Oops, my bad. I have to admit that is very much far from sane. Krabs has been exploiting SpongeBob and Squidward for years, paying them with, well, almost nothing. To top it all off, he asks them to pay him for things like goofing off and standing at the cash register. Maybe I should add extortion to this list. While SpongeBob doesn't seem to care, probably because he's more concerned about jellyfishing than financial stability, this is still wage theft.
18, 19. Here you go, Mr. K. I think this should cover all my nonsense. An extra 50 cents for when I was tying my shoe.
He takes advantage of SpongeBob's love for his work and treats him like crap. Like here.
Your turn to chip in, boy.
Sure. Yeah, buy yourself something pretty.
This isn't money.
This is what Mr. Krabs pays me with. Mr. Krabs' Wacky Bucks.
And here.
I've been doing some calculating in the old numbers, that I'd save a whole nickel if I cut your salary completely.
Squidward convinces SpongeBob to go on strike. After a while, Mr. Krabs comes running claiming that he wants them back. Surely he won't say something to make them want to quit their jobs again.
In order to pay off these damages, you are gonna work for me forever!
If Bikini Bottom had any semblance of law, Mr. Krabs would have been in some deep waters. But apparently, they don't. In real life, the U.S. Department of Labor would have a field day with the Krabster. Considering how Squidward, SpongeBob, and even Pearl have suffered, if found guilty, Mr. Krabs would face up to 10 years in prison and pay $152,000 as a fine. Remember the episode Krusty Dogs? Okay, here's the setup. One day, SpongeBob accidentally discovers that if you shape a Krabby Patty into a tube, it magically resembles a hot dog. And he runs to tell Mr. Krabs.
Mr. Krabs! Dinner tastes just like a Krabby Patty. Maybe we can add them to the menu.
What does Mr. Krabs do with this discovery? He asks the ultimate question every customer wants to hear.
Would you pay the same as what a Krabby Patty costs?
Sure, I suppose so.
How about double?
Now you're talking.
Naturally, he decides to launch a whole new product line, Krusty Dogs. It's Bikini Bottom's first and worst attempt at gourmet fast food. But here's the thing. Krusty Dogs aren't actually hot dogs. They're just repurposed cylindrical versions of old Krabby Patties. No new ingredients, no improved recipe, just good old burger meat squeezed into a different shape. And of course, Mr. Krabs conveniently forgets to mention that tiny detail to his customers. You know, the ones paying extra because they think they're getting something new? False advertising? Absolutely. Krabs plastered the Krusty Krab with flashy signs, hyping up Krusty Dogs as the latest and greatest invention. And then he gets Squidward to make the signs attract the needed attention.
Look at that guy, just like a hot dog, Mommy.
Why are you to stay in school, Billy?
Predictably, the new product flops as customers grow bored of eating glorified hot dog burgers. But instead of admitting defeat, Mr. Krabs pulls the ultimate cheapskate move. He quietly switches back to normal Krabby Patties without issuing any refunds. Misleading customers like this would fall under false advertising laws, resulting in steep fines of $40,000 for misleading advertisement. But knowing Krabs, he probably would have just blamed the shape and tried charging an additional rebranding fee. You know, when people are pushed to the limit, they would normally know when to quit.
That's it. I quit. Not anymore. I quit.
Quit!
Anyone but Mr. Krabs. In Born Again Krabs, he takes bargain hunting to such a reckless extreme that it almost sends someone to the morgue, and all to avoid tossing a spoiled Krabby Patty in the trash. While cleaning the grill, SpongeBob finds something terrifying: an ancient, moldy Krabby Patty that looks like it survived a nuclear apocalypse. Naturally, he tries to do the sensible thing.
There, little one. Your journey is almost over.
Someone tried to throw away a patty!
After digging through the restaurant's trash, Krabs pulls out a gnarly, half-rotten patty that's been festering longer than the Krusty Krab's grease traps. But instead of letting it go like a normal business owner, Krabs looks at the disgusting patty with dollar signs on his mind. When SpongeBob tells him where he found it, Krabs has this to say.
Tomorrow, a customer will find it under his bun.
It's old and cold.
You're not to make another patty until that one is sold.
This moldy, growling abomination could land the Krusty Krab on every food safety watch list, but Mr. Krabs is not fazed. Why? That expired mess is apparently worth a glorious
5.2 cents.
Classic Krabs, valuing rotten meat over basic human decency. Or fish decency. Why throw it away when you can serve it to some poor sucker and make a quick cent? Not even a quick buck.
Here you are, sir. One Krabby Patty.
This is a public health disaster waiting to happen. Serving expired food could get a restaurant shut down permanently and saddle the owner with fines up to $5,000 and 5 years in prison for reckless endangerment. As the totally official judge here, I'll make sure the Krusty Krab gets a health inspector visit every week, and Mr. Krabs must eat everything pulled from the dumpster. Okay, maybe that last part is a bit excessive. In the episode Drive-Thru, Mr. Krabs proves once again that nothing, not even common sense, can get in the way of him making a few extra bucks. The episode begins with Mr. Krabs fixing a hole in the wall of the Krusty Krab with toothpaste. Obviously that doesn't work, and the crack becomes larger.
Well, I think it's...
That small hole in the wall just became a medium-sized hole in the wall.
Now, any other responsible business owner would see this as a major safety issue, but not Mr. K. Not when this happens.
Careful now.
Hey, you guys put in a drive-thru.
We did?
3 large Krabby Patties, Krabby Fries, 2 extra large orders of Krabby Rings.
The penny-pinching Krab sees the gaping hole as a money-making opportunity and turns it into a drive-thru. But everything is wrong with this setup. There's no headset, no system, the menu's written on a frackin' napkin. SpongeBob's practically squishing burgers out through the hole. And then there's a grumpy Squidward who's just fed up with the whole ridiculousness of everything.
Ahoy, Squidward!
I am getting really tired of running back and forth.
But don't worry, Mr. Krabs has got a solution for it.
Oh, wonderful. Now, how am I supposed to get 2 SpongeBobs?
Problem solved.
Hi.
It's days like this that make me wish I had gone to college.
Soon the drive-thru line starts to build, and in no time there's a long queue of angry, honking, impatient fishies.
Hey, what's the holdup? How long are you gonna make us wait? We've been waiting here for hours. We're still waiting.
Things spiral so far out of control, the town turns into a full-on gridlock around the Krusty Krab, and even the police show up.
Mr. Eugene Krabs?
What, a ticket?
A ticket. Now, why would I write you a ticket? How about for turning the whole town into a parking lot?
And then the mayor.
Mayor?
Eugene Krabs? The whole town is at a standstill because your drive-thru is so slow.
Now, at this point, you might be thinking, Mr. Krabs will realize he's got a big problem on his claws and shut it all down. No! What does he do?
Don't you worry, there's an answer for that too. There you go! 2 drive-thrus, 2 lines, and I'll make money twice as fast.
That worked just as well as the toothpaste did.
Hey, watch it, will ya?
Then there's Plankton, who tried using the traffic jam to sell his chum nuggets.
Going fast, get them while they're cold.
Looks like Krabs' drive-thru is really paying off.
For me!
Oh, no. Not again.
Now there's a line!
Brother should have just stayed back at the chum bucket. For causing a traffic obstruction with this terribly constructed drive-thru that led to actual accidents, Mr. Krabs is liable and can be charged with criminal negligence. And for the injuries and mayhem caused, he'd be facing 10 years imprisonment with a fine of $5,000. Another crime that'll send Mr. Krabs straight behind bars is animal cruelty. Believe me, Mr. Krabs will do just about anything for money. You'd assume that he'd draw the line somewhere, like, I don't know, not exploiting animals, but nope, not Eugene. In the episode scent of money, Mr. Krabs uses Gary as a metal detector to steal money. This started when he saw a penny get stuck to Gary's shell while SpongeBob was taking the snail on a walk.
Shiver me shell whack. Or like a little money detecting, what do you call it? Sneagle.
You mean snail?
Why don't you ever bring your little Sneagle to work with you?
Right then and there, Mr. Krabs decides to use the innocent pet snail as his personal penny-looting machine.
I've been working on this one for months.
Despite being told that the process causes Gary discomfort, Mr. Krabs still continues to use Gary and steal change from other people.
What do you mean you don't feel so good? You look fine to me. Quit being such a baby and start making me some money.
This is theft, exploitation, and animal cruelty, all wrapped up into one really not so good package. Why did no one call the cops on him? In another episode, Jelly Hunter, a customer overhears SpongeBob deliciously munching on his lunch that he specially prepared. The customer is very interested. Who wouldn't when our jolly good yellow sponge is sounding like this?
Yum. Oh, yeah.
Customer tries the Krabby Patty with jellyfish jelly, and it is
Amazing.
Mr. Krabs barges onto the scene. At first, he's furious at SpongeBob for altering the Krabby Patty, but when he hears these words...
Sir, this is the greatest thing I've ever eaten. Gonna come back here for lunch for the rest of my life. Hey, buddy.
anyone would know what would come next. But apparently SpongeBob is always the last to catch on. Mr. Krabs wastes no time and tasks him to go grab as much of these money fish as he can. SpongeBob thinks that it's the opportunity of his lifetime, his dream come true. Jellyfish hunting mixed with his Krabby Patty flipping job. Yay!
Oh boy, getting paid to jellyfish. That's my life's dream.
And true to his naivete, he tells Mr. Krabs to treat the jellyfish with kindness.
Okay, Mr. Krabs, just make sure the jellyfish are comfortable.
Ooh, I'll keep him comfortable inside me wallet.
He begins his hunt for the jellyfish, but soon realizes that the insatiable crustacean capitalist Mr. Krabs will keep demanding for more and more.
What don't you understand about more? More? More!
This goes on until the entire jellyfish yard is totally depleted and now looking like a grim wasteland.
Well, there's no more. Now that's jellyfishing.
But oh boy, that's not the worst of it. SpongeBob gets to discover a factory where the jellyfishies were being confined, then forced through massive tubes and cruelly exploited of their jelly and tossed away, practically dead. It's such a horror scene to someone like SpongeBob especially. The dude can't believe his eyes.
What kind of monster is responsible for this horror?
And I'll be honest, I thought the camera would pan to SpongeBob. I mean, you brought this fate on them, but yeah, the person peddling such a gruesome enslavement is literally...
That's it, keep that gelatinous gold a-flowing!
Mr. Krabs?
Yeah, greedy old Mr. Krabs. Everything about it's so wrong. It's one of those rare times where SpongeBob boldly stands up to his boss.
Mr. Krabs! Stop this madness!
This sort of animal cruelty and inhumane exploitation will fetch Mr. Krabs up to 5 years imprisonment for felony animal cruelty and a hefty fine of $100,000 too. In the episode Krabby Chronicle, Eugene H. Krabs takes his green-eye greed for money to the extent of operating a news printing business to deliberately spread fake news just to gain more clicks. Okay, technically there's no internet in Bikini Bottom, so to stack up more cash cash.
Boy, these papers are selling faster than we can print them.
I don't think these stories are doing anyone any good.
They're certainly doing me some good. Can you believe it?
If it's any defense at all, he started legitimately by putting out ads like every well-meaning business owner. But it turns out no one was buying the paper where he placed his ad, and he soon learns why.
Could I interest you in a copy of the Examiner this fine day?
Nobody reads the Examiner, bud. Bottom feeder's where it's at.
Fish Boy strikes again? And aren't these stories a little less than truthful?
But they're selling.
They certainly are.
Again, if it's any defense at all, he did question the ethics of it, but he learns how much they charge. A whopping 25 cents per word? Ho ho ho, nuff said.
Sure is easy money. That gives me an idea.
That's how Mr. Krabs starts his newspaper business.
From now on, you'll be twice as busy. Lead reporter for the new Krabby Chronicle.
Of course, SpongeBob is certainly not getting paid for these extra roles and hours. I mean, this alone is a whole lot of exploitation and violation of labor laws, but let's just stick to the script. After SpongeBob begins his new job role and brings his juicy scoop, nobody's interested. Mr. Krabs has a solution, though.
Maybe instead of man watches pole, man marries pole. See? Now that's a juicy story.
Isn't that lying?
Don't think of it as lying, boy. A practical joke. Something everybody can have a good laugh about.
I'm not gonna defend that. I'm with SpongeBob and the journalism code on ethics on this one. No, that's not good. And so it begins. Paper after paper. Lives, businesses, homes, reputations ruined with each publication.
A little news story could have ruined my business.
Dude, even Plankton gets his chum bucket closed down.
I'm Health Inspector. I'm officially closing down your restaurant.
I haven't done anything.
That's not what this says.
Chum made of your chums? What? Who's to blame for this?
Mention the fact that he's written lies about us.
And I thought I was evil.
Dang, when Plankton's calling you evil? Oh, yeah, something's wrong. Very wrong. But none of that matters to Mr. K when he's sitting on a money throne. SpongeBob comes to him and complains about the damage the stories are causing, but what does Mr. Krabs do? The sensible thing?
People want wild, juicy stories. To come up with the wildest story ever.
Mr. Krabs, I've written about everyone in town.
Give me a shocker.
Well, he asked for the wildest story ever, and he got it.
Krabs overworks employees, pays his tired porter pennies while he rakes in the dough.
Sick and inhumane!
For publishing fake news like this, Mr. Krabs is looking at 2 years imprisonment. Then, for printing defamatory information, if sued to court, he would also pay a fine of $1 million as damages to cover for every individual that was a victim to his fake news printing business. Let's just say, some people are dumb in a funny kind of way. Patrick Star takes the lead in that category, but still, this doesn't give anyone the right to exploit him. But when you're Mr. Eugene Krabs, a jobless hermit living under a rock isn't where you draw the line. And when SpongeBob leaves for his 9 to 5, Patrick is sad. He wants a hat, and to get a hat, he needs a job. And it so happens that Mr. Krabs has just the position for him.
How would you like a job, Patrick?
Oh boy, give me my hat!
But first you have to entice people into the restaurant. Holding this sign.
But then our star doesn't shine so bright. I mean, he directs tourists to the chum bucket.
His first customer.
Can you direct me to the Krusty Krab, please?
What does he think he's doing?
Or literally blows them away with his razzle-dazzle.
That's enough, Patrick.
Did you see that, Mr. Krabs?
Mr. Krabs, frustrated with Pat's idiocy, gives him the work hat to send him off, but it causes Patrick to keep falling face flat, and somehow that interests the tourists.
Look at that guy! He doesn't know how to stand on his own 2 feet!
Now that's the kind of mindlessness I'd pay money to see.
And the moment Mr. Krabs hears that they'd pay money, hard cash, this happens.
Well, heck yeah.
$5, please. There's that sound again.
He sees a gold mine in having Patrick be himself, an absolute buffoon, and so he charges $5 for the exclusive show of having Patrick repeatedly falling on his face to the entertainment of the tourists.
I hate everyone.
Employee fall from high atop this tower. Bucket of spiny sea urchin.
Yeah, I share Squid sentiments too. These people are sick. Making Patrick repeatedly hurt himself over and over and over again is just messed up. The sick psycho crowd is messed up too, as they keep enjoying and paying Mr. Krabs to make the falling fool act more dangerous and entertaining. SpongeBob tries to set things straight, but Patrick holds him back.
Please, Don't tell Mr. Krabs. People have been telling me you're no good. I don't want to go back to being no hat Patrick.
I'm not gonna lie, hearing the trauma influencing Patrick's reason for wanting to keep the hat is a lot to unpack. I really felt for him here, dude. You may argue that Patrick participated freely, but Mr. Krabs is complicit in that harm. Yes, Mr. Krabs isn't directly causing the injuries, but his encouragement, coercing, and creating more dangerous scenarios for him makes him culpable.
Keep up the good work, Patrick. You stop falling. I don't know, Mr. Krabs. These people paid good money for the pain and humiliation.
In legal terms, this is seen as criminal exploitation, and Mr. Krabs will be fined a sum of $50,000 and also serve a jail term of 10 years. Now, if it hasn't already been apparent at this point, Mr. Krabs has done some pretty despicable things, but this next one was just as abominable. In the episode Patty Crapper, Mr. Krabs entrusts SpongeBob with a very important assignment.
I'm entrusting you to retrieve the secret ingredient. To do this without any foul-up, understand?
SpongeBob accepts the job. The Krabby Patty Maestro Fry Cook carries out the task with all seriousness. He received the briefcase containing the secret ingredient from the delivery company, but to his horror, noticing a hole in the briefcase, SpongeBob figures out the secret ingredient was stolen. He enlists Patrick to help him investigate and discover who's probably responsible for the theft. But after going through all the possible suspects,
Either you tell me where the secret ingredient is, or be forced to use other means of making you talk. I'm on to you, squirrel.
even Gary wasn't exempt.
Why'd you do it, Gary?
He still couldn't find the thief. Finally, a frustrated SpongeBob goes to Mr. Krabs and narrates everything that happened, but Mr. K accuses him of stealing the secret ingredient instead.
You were in charge of guarding that secret ingredient.
It just slipped away from me somehow. All I know is that it had to be someone who knew about the delivery, and this person would have to know what to do with the secret ingredient.
You stole me secret ingredient.
Me?
Come on, man. Your most loyal and trusted employee whom you've always treated as frackin' doo-doo? That's who you're accusing. The cops on the scene are ready to put the cuffs on Bikini Bottom's finest fry cook and cart his square bottom off the jail.
Don't talk. You can tell it to the cops. Calling them right now.
No need. We heard it all from this barrel.
Arrest this thief, officer.
Isn't that the stolen secret ingredient?
There's greed, and then there's just plain stupidity. And then there's a diabolical mixture of both, and voila, you got Mr. Krabs. Because explain to me the thought process behind why he would even think that framing his most loyal fry cook for stealing the secret ingredient was ever going to be a good idea. And for what?
I can explain. $1.99 is a lot to pay for the secret ingredient, so I took it to avoid paying, you know.
Think Judge Trout will be very interested to hear this little story.
For a creature with such large eyes, how could he be so short-sighted? For the crime of theft and framing someone else for said theft, Mr. Krabs would actually go down for a serious jail time of 10 years in prison and pay a fine of $25,000. Anyway, the judge makes him give away free Krabby Patties.
Get your free Krabby Patties!
Next up is Mr. Krabs targeting kids for his fraudulent schemes. Yes, Mr. Krabs has shown time and time again that when it comes to getting a few extra bucks, there's no length or morally reprehensible depth he won't sink to. In the episode Krabby Land, it's summer, and Mr. K is over the moon with excitement.
Is it really the first day of summer?
Yeah!
Okay, I gotta ask, what is it about summer that would make Mr. Krabs so happy?
The money.
The money?
I mean, the children.
Yeah, right. The children, no arguments there at all.
Well, during the summer break, children wander Bikini Bottom unsupervised. Their pockets lined with allowance, without any parental guidance whatsoever. I guess that's what I like best.
The stout pot-bellied crustacean inflates the price for kids' meals from $1.99 to $4.99, an outrageous 300% increase. Thank the oceans, a new playground in town captivates the kids, and literally no one steps a foot into the Krusty Krab for some illogically priced Krabby Patty. But Mr. Krabs, not giving up on his summer ambitions, executes a genius idea. He launches his own playground, Krabby Land, and he spares no expense.
Krabby Land!
to think he misinterpreted the meaning of sparing no expense, because this shabby construction of a playground is a death trap. But it's Mr. Krabs, so this shouldn't be any surprise. Hey, keep in mind, guys, that his complete disregard for safety standards itself falls under child endangerment. But after the catastrophe of a playground, Mr. Krabs has another fraud up his sleeve. He promises the kids Krabby the Clown.
Everyone who pens theirs back gets to meet the Krabby the Clown! Yeah! Have fun! Don't forget to eat plenty of vitamin-enriched Krabby Patties.
We want Krabby!
And while SpongeBob does his best to entertain their impatient bunch,
the kids are using them as boomerangs.
Boomerangs? They might break my windows! Tell him Krabby has just arrived!
He's here?
Oh, spoiled!
Krabby the Clown is finally ready to make his appearance. But these eager kids are in for a huge surprise.
Hey, kids! Thank you all for coming! Eat plenty of Krabby Patties!
The crab didn't even attempt to put any effort into playing the part. Even SpongeBob wasn't having it and calls him out.
You promised these children Krabby the Clown. All I saw out there was Jimmy the Cheapskate.
That was such an accurate description. Mr. Krabs gathers his loot and takes his exit, but not before making an open admission to his fraudulent schemes.
I don't care about the children. I just care about their parents' money. No skin off my nose.
I mean, that's been obvious from the start. But unknown to Mr. Krabs, the kids already furious about the clown scam are right behind him, and the kids get their revenge.
I gotta get some of that green stuff. Oh, not that green stuff.
Mr. Krabs would be facing serious fines if charged to court for knowingly defrauding children and endangering their lives. He would pay a fine of $5,000 and 5 years behind bars. There is no way the Krusty Krab should still be operational. If the health inspectors in Bikini Bottom actually did their job, that place should have been shut down and the cheapskate crustacean long behind bars. On the list of his numerous criminal offenses, I've got deliberate food poisoning, contamination, and selling of rotten food to his customers. In The Krusty Sponge, he has Squidward make spongy patties for sales, which was just basically rotten food.
They were just the boxes of patties we didn't have room for in the freezer. They turned yellow.
You mean to tell me you actually expect people to pay for a rotten patty?
It's got his customers sick and looking like zombies.
Zombies! They're your customers! Look!
I feel sick.
What have you done? You poisoned all these people!
Not to mention the diabolicalness of a patty called Nasty Patty.
Why, that's the most diabolical Krabby Patty.
I call it the Nasty Patty.
Let's talk about the episode Greasy Buffoon, because in this episode the restaurant is covered with excess grease because the grease trap has not been cleaned. Look at this.
That, me boy, is a grease trap.
Kinda looks like nobody's cleaned out the trap in a while.
But after Mr. Krabs gets SpongeBob to clean up the grease, they dump it outside Plankton's chum bucket.
Right behind there.
You know what? I'll be adding environmental pollution to the list of Mr. Krabs' crimes. Plankton ends up using the grease to make his chum taste good. He gets more customers, and Mr. Krabs attempts to do the same because of course he does.
On to the first one, Deluxey Krabby Patty with extra flavor.
Do you think it might be kinda unhealthy to be feeding people all this grease?
And I ask again, where are the health inspectors? Plankton and Mr. Krabs begin their contest of the most greasy goo that can be sold.
What in the name of Neptune is this?
I accidentally dropped some buns into our vat of extra grease.
And the bums at Bikini Bottom just keep on buying.
Are you going to eat that?
It was supposed to be going to table 3.
This is just gross, man. They end up causing an overweight epidemic. The customers are sickly.
That frog's not my best friend, too.
The environment's completely polluted and covered in greasy goo. And finally, the health inspector shows up. Thank goodness. He puts an end to the capitalist menace by shutting down the restaurant. But Mr. Krabs' penalty should have been way more than that. For poisoning the customers, he should be penalized with a fine of $375,000 and imprisoned for 20 years. Mr. Krabs has countlessly exploited his workers and others, but this incident in The Krusty Sponge takes the cake for me. A food inspector visits the Krusty Krab. He gives his review, which was very brutal.
My appetite flew south for the winter. When I say this restaurant smells like the rear end of a goat. You could find livelier help in a graveyard, and I'm not just coughing. The management stunk so bad, I had to get my sweater dry cleaned on the way home.
Ha! But come on. brutal it may be, it was still honest. This review makes customers leave, but then he adds that the only bright thing about the establishment is the bright yellow sponge behind the grill.
I chowed down on a meal that titillated my taste buds. Sponge behind the grill is no square. Krabs really wanted to soak up the dough. He'd sponge it up. He'd over-sponge it. Too much sponge.
Mr. Krabs hears this, and true to character, what he sees is no longer a fry cook, but a sponge to soak up the dough. One word: money. First, the sign of the Krusty Krab is replaced with... And then more spongy horrors fill up the restaurant.
Tangy, spongy sauce. Bobby sauce for the not-so-daring. Hey, Squidward. There are new Krusty Sponge napkins.
You really need to see a doctor.
Yes, he definitely needs to see a doctor. But using SpongeBob's image as merchandise without his consent isn't where it stops. Mr. Krabs forces him to drive a SpongeBob-themed train till the poor sponge almost collapses from exhaustion.
Who's ready for another lap?
And of course, there's no extra pay or compensation for this grueling work. How else would you define exploitation? If SpongeBob sought justice, he could have Mr. Krabs pay a labor exploitation fine of $151,000 and also spend up to 20 years behind bars. But apparently, there's no justice in Bikini Bottom because Mr. Krabs gets away scot-free by bribing the judge.
Does the defendant have anything to say?
No, Your Honor. That wouldn't happen to be a SpongeBob gavel you're using.
It's my prized possession. Huge SpongeBob fan.
Permission to approach the bench, Your Honor. Take him around there as many times as you like. I'd love a happy ending.
And that brings us to his next crime. This show at several points had me questioning who the actual villain was, like Plankton or Mr. Krabs. But after the episode One Course Meal, you get to see Mr. Krabs as the true psychomaniac that he is. The episode opens with Plankton attempting again to steal the secret ingredient formula. This time he launches an aerial attack on the Krusty Krab and succeeds in entrapping both Mr. K and SpongeBob.
Playing with fire now, Plankton.
Just give me the secret formula and I'll be on my way.
SpongeBob, too scared to be tortured by a feather, spills the location of the secret formula.
Okay, but I don't know how to get into the safe behind the painting in Mr. Krabs' office. He won't let me near it.
But before Plankton can revel in his victory, at long last, Pearl walks in, and Plankton is scared witless.
Call off your daughter, Krabs! Call her off!
Who knew Plankton was so afraid of whales?
I'm just as surprised too, and that cackle from Mr. Krabs after learning Plankton's weakness just reveals his sinister intentions. He decides to exploit it to the fullest. He dresses up as Pearl and appears almost everywhere Plankton is. This totally terrifies the pipsqueak at every point. He even dreads stepping into the light.
Dinner's ready, Plankton.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you bring it up? Can't risk stepping into the light.
Yes, Plankton is no way near a good guy and has had it coming all these years. Sure, whatever. But he didn't totally deserve the treatment that he got from Mr. Krabs here, okay? This goes on for 2 whole weeks until Plankton becomes severely traumatized.
I can't take it. This is driving me crazy.
He is so mentally tortured that he decides to...
I'll just be tortured for the rest of my life. That's it, I'm done.
Yeah. He'd rather be unalived than continue living. Honestly, this is all levels of sick and messed up. To put it into perspective, Clancy Brown, the voice actor for Mr. Krabs, hates this particular episode. Do you understand how crazy it is that the person voicing a character hates the episode simply because of how messed up Eugene was? Even though Mr. Krabs didn't physically harm Plankton, psychological manipulation that leads to mental harm or distress could, in some places, fall under the umbrella of malicious harassment. You'd be facing 5 years imprisonment and a fine of $50,000 for exploiting Plankton's fear like that and mental health vulnerability. Was I expecting Mr. Krabs to draw the line to the dead? Certainly not. If he could take from the living, what's an army of the dead gonna do?
Hey man, that's my hat.
What? No way. Crawl back into your hole, Bone Boy. Oh, you're spotted a card, Marrow Brain. Back to oblivion.
Here's the storyline. In a yard sale, Mr. Krabs gives SpongeBob a hat that he thinks is worthless, but regrets his decision just a few seconds later.
$500 for that drink hat.
Not so fast. I'll give you $1,000.
I'll give you $100,000 in cash.
I'll give you $1 million for that hat.
Eugene, realizing his costly mistake, devises all means to retrieve the hat from SpongeBob.
But he leaves me no other option. I'm gonna have to scare it off of him.
This entire scheme ends up taking him to a grave site, all in a bid to get the hat back. And in case you didn't know, grave desecration and theft is an offense often carrying up to 10 years in prison. And if it involves human remains, it's treated much more severely.
Come to Papa! Come on, Smitty, let go! Rest in pieces, Smitty!
Yeah, those are human remains. Well, technically. Desecration includes defiling a burial site, vandalizing tombstones, destroying caskets, and that's exactly what Mr. Krabs does, but not before asking.
Really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
By the time he desecrates the graves, robs the skeleton's remains, and fights off the army of the dead,
Finn! You're falling apart, Miro must be kidding! Back to oblivion!
he returns triumphantly to cash in his $1 million, but gets hit with some shocking news.
They found a whole warehouse full of them. They're worthless.
And so all that violation was for nothing. If charged to court, he'd face 10 years imprisonment for theft and a fine of $10,000. Is it just me, or should Squidward and SpongeBob have submitted their resignation letters long ago? Why would any reasonable person choose to continue working for a boss, treating his employees like fracking crap, dude? A different list could be made solely for all the times Mr. Krabs has abused and mistreated his employees. In the graveyard shift, he forces SpongeBob and Squidward to work a 24/7-hour shift without extra pay.
If we stayed open later, you'd give us your money?
Sure.
Mr. Squidward, welcome to the night shift. 24 hours a day.
This isn't the only time he's done this either. One time, the 24-hour shift takes such a huge toll on Squidward that he has this to say.
Can I go home yet?
No one goes home!
Even my bags have bags.
And let's not forget when he gave up SpongeBob's soul to the Flying Dutchman ghost for pennies.
62 cents. I'll take the money.
Mr. Krabs!
Next up, Davy Jones' locker.
You know it's bad when Squidward Tentacles, of all people, sticks up for the yellow sponge.
How could you trade SpongeBob for cents?
Think I could have gotten more?
You sold him out. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Growing up is realizing that Mr. Krabs is the real villain. In the episode Clam, Mr. Krabs finally got his $1 millionth note. To celebrate the special achievement, he takes SpongeBob and Squidward on a fishing trip.
Congratulate yourselves, lads! A captain's nothing without his loyal crew. A crew like you comes along maybe once in a lifetime. I'm taking you on a trip.
Wow, a trip!
But Mr. Krabs decides he isn't just gonna watch his $1 million note float away in the belly of a clam. He stops at nothing. Absolutely nothing till his dollar is retrieved.
Then I guess I have no choice but to offer a reward.
Woo! Is it another fishing trip?
It's this sandwich.
You expect me to break my back over a sandwich?
The sandwich.
Whatever. We've got plenty more to...
As if detaining them and deliberately starving his workers wasn't enough, he goes even as far as using them as live bait to retrieve his money. Just how much more of this treatment and terrible working conditions do these two have to put up with? These offenses are clear violations of labor laws and will attract a heavy fine of $135,000 and $250,000 compensation to his employees. He would also be facing 20 years imprisonment for starvation, kidnapping, and forced labor. The issue with a lot of Mr. Krabs' entrepreneurship is that he never follows the proper procedure. In the episode Krusty Towers, he turns the Krusty Krab into the Krusty Towers Hotel, a fancy hotel. This idea comes after his experience in a hotel where he enjoys a superb treatment until he sees the bill.
They charge me for everything. $25 for a hamburger.
Money is the only motivation for Eugene Krabs, and so he erects his own hotel and is ready to take in customers and make some moolah.
If they could charge that much for a lousy burger, I could charge for a lousy Krabby Patty. The Krusty Towers was born.
There are serious questions that need to be asked. First,
Where are all the new hotel employees?
if he had no new staff, you can bet that he built the Krusty Tower cutting costs without obtaining necessary permits or adhering to safety standards. As expected, it comes tumbling down in no time. Operating an unlicensed hotel is seen as a criminal offense. Mr. Krabs would be slammed with a maximum fine of $500,000 and 3 years imprisonment. Adding the Krabby Land playground that was built without a license or safety standard, that'll be another 3 years imprisonment and a $16,000 fine. Honestly, this next one should have made the list sooner. Theft would be Mr. Krabs' middle name. Other than using Gary to steal money or robbing the dead for a hat, he's tried many times to steal from SpongeBob. In the episode Penny Foolish, Mr. Krabs takes his kleptomania to a new level. He sees SpongeBob pick up a coin off the street, and he just loses it.
SpongeBob found a penny. Some folks just walk along and stumble over free money. Others, they work.
The klepto crab becomes obsessed with stealing the penny from SpongeBob. After many attempts to get SpongeBob to part with the penny, including hosting a charity dinner,
Pennies for the penniless. I would ask each of you to look not with your eyes, but with your heart.
he finally sneaks into SpongeBob's pineapple to steal the penny for himself.
Now we... Somewhere.
The penalty for theft could include fines, community service, or probation, but for severe cases or repeat offenders, and Mr. Krabs is a repeat offender, prison time may be imposed. So the crusty kleptomaniac would be facing a 10-year jail term and a $10,000 fine. Next up on the list of criminal offenses, Mr. Krabs disposed of a dead body. In the episode Nasty Patty, a supposed health inspector shows up at the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs leaves his money bath and asks SpongeBob to set everything in order.
Wash your hands! Clean the floors! The health inspector's here!
With all the violations that take place at that Krusty shack, I'm surprised it's still open.
Mr. Krabs, there's no reason to worry. The most perfect place in the universe.
You really haven't got any brains at all, have you, son?
I agree, his cluelessness is fascinating. The inspector asks to taste one of everything, and Mr. Krabs very readily and eagerly feeds it to him. He is ready to do anything to ensure that the Krusty Krab is in the clear.
Give him a smorgasbord!
The inspector requests for a plain Krabby Patty to finish his test, and that's when things take a turn.
This can for a special news bulletin. Look out for a man who's been passing himself off as a health inspector. Free food.
Oh. Nothing activates Mr. Krabs' murderous intent more than being scammed. They decide to teach this quote-unquote imposter a lesson.
It doesn't seem right, but it feels so good. The horseradish, gnarliest stuff in the ocean.
Jar of toenail clippings in my office.
I dropped it in the toilet.
And I'll dry it with my gym socks. The most diabolical Krabby Patty.
What in the name of Neptune? This scene alone should give Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob serious time. You see, I'm so flabbergasted I can't even speak. This is insane! They serve this gnarly abomination of a patty to the inspector, and when they think he's eaten a bite of it, they watch as he chokes while laughing their crusty and spongy cookies off until another twist happens.
Newsflash! Fake inspector has been captured. If a health inspector comes to your restaurant, he's real.
Phew, that's a relief.
But wait, there's more!
I don't think he'll be laughing, boy, because that patty killed him!
Plot twist, it was only a fly that got into the health inspector's throat, but SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs did not know that. They thought it was the nasty patty that did the work, and now there was a dead body to dispose of.
This should be far enough. Now get digging!
Tampering with evidence of a would-be crime scene, illegally disposing a body. These are serious charges. Mr. Krabs would be facing a sentence of up to 12 years imprisonment with fines of up to $25,000. Also add a $200,000 fine and 20 years imprisonment for food violation and poisoning. And when you think you've gotten to the bottom of this criminal barrel, Mr. Krabs exists as a character to remind you that there is a rock bottom. Attempted murder makes it to the crustacean's rap sheet. Why, you may ask? Well, aside from our last point, it starts with Squidward in his artistic dreams.
Important paintings. See me expose my exquisite suffering. Don't even recognize the masterwork.
But the customers treat his painting the same way they treated his clarinet playing.
How about some art to go with that?
Not everyone can be a Da Vinci, sorry Squiddy. Mr. Krabs, sore over losing customers, orders him to shut down the artistic display, but after SpongeBob persuades him that Squidward's art would be worth millions someday, Mr. Krabs sees dollar signs. Not so fast though. His million-dollar dream evaporates just as quickly when an art appraiser tells him that the paintings are worth nothing. Unless...
Paintings can become much more valuable when the artist is no longer with us.
And so begins Mr. Krabs' devious attempts to have Squidward out of the picture.
Come on, Squidward, you can do it! No!
And when he thinks he's finally succeeded in getting the talentless tentacles out of the picture and is ready to cash out his millions, Squidward keeps coming back.
Hello, Krabs, how much money me paintings are worth?
Why can't the cephalopod just stay out of the picture? Well, still fixated on getting his millions, Mr. K decides to take matters mallet into his own hands and eliminate Squiddy himself.
Oh, you're messing with me.
Since he didn't succeed in killing Squidward, it would still be considered attempted murder. The crime of an attempted murder is very serious. Mr. Krabs will be serving 20 years in prison and facing $250,000 in fines. All of that combined, and the cheapskate crustacean is looking at a whopping $1,349,000 in fines and 205 years in the darkest cells of Bikini Bottom. Now, if you think that's bad, check out this other cynical character and compare. Click the video on the screen to find out.